My name is Ben Mack, and we're going to be learning about masterminding. And masterminding, a specific construct that can happen on the telephone with up to 8 people that will always take an hour or less. And this structure, while I refer to it as a self-organizing classroom, because it is, it's about up to 8 people getting together that have a desire for self-development or some sort of learning that they're seeking to do. And while people can mastermind on self-development in general, it has been regularly reported and documented that having a common theme is what is likely to keep masterminds together and to increase the satisfaction if people have some sort of commonality of what they're working on. And so tonight I'm going to many times make reference to masterminding, especially for parents of kids on the autism spectrum, partially because I'm an Aspie. I've got Asperger's, I'm autistic. And this masterminding is also great for people on the spectrum because it has so many elements that are predictable. One of the things that I love in terms of my preferences is knowing when something is going to begin and knowing when something is going to end. With my Asperger's, if I'm told that something is done at 3 and it's 3, I'm like this, and at 3:05 I'm like, I'm supposed to be out of here. And so part of how I created this was to make something that worked for my sensibilities. What has been found again and again in terms of online applications, in terms of education that I've seen, is that if you make it accessible to the greatest people with quote-unquote disabilities, it actually makes it easier for the average person to use it. When online websites make themselves, Open Access was a breakthrough book that talked about how to make websites appropriate for people with disabilities, and what they found was that it increased the profitability because it made it more intuitive for everybody. About a decade ago, I dropped out of a PhD program and was grateful that a self-made millionaire named Telman Knudsen invited me into his in-home mastermind, and then he gave me an assignment to go and interview 40 self-made millionaires about whether or not they do masterminding and what style of masterminding they did. A fascinating thing to me was that all 40 of the self-made millionaires that I was able to talk to said that they were in a regular mastermind. Now, it might have also been that I met some self-made millionaires that didn't mastermind, so they didn't want to be asked about it. But so of those 40 self-made millionaires that were doing masterminding, I asked them about their best practices, what they liked, what they didn't like, and aggregated it all together into a 5-step process that you can see on the handout that we have here. That is so simple that on the back page, the structure can be written on a little cocktail napkin. It's a 5-step process, and the acronym CREST helps me remember it. C-R-E-S-T. And I'm excited because with me here today is a mastermind partner, Ryan, who I partner with. I partner with him with Conscious Capitalism Asheville. We meet together on a telephone mastermind twice a month on the second and fourth Monday of the month. Most of the masterminds that I have been a part of have been weekly telephone masterminds. So this is only the third one that I've been in that's a twice a month type of deal. I recommend that you guys consider, if you're going to get involved in a mastermind, I recommend doing it weekly, because from what I've seen, those have the greatest likelihood of lasting the longest. I've helped start over 200 masterminds, and only 5 have gone, to the best of my knowledge, that I personally was involved in starting. Only 5 went for longer than a year. So it's also a matter of finding that like-mindedness, how committed people are to their own personal development and progress. I love getting people that are willing to make a year-long commitment, because one of the things that I've researched and found is that psychologists regularly agree that we tend to overestimate what we might accomplish in a week or a month, but underestimate what we can accomplish in a year with week-over-week incremental steps towards our goals. And based on that insight, based on that idea, embedded within the CREST formula is something called a SMART goal. And we'll get to the crust formula in a second. And pardon me if I'm giving you too much data at once, but it's part of how I can externalize and get these things out. But I love the technology of a SMART goal. If you leave here and don't do the masterminding, but get in the habit of doing a weekly SMART goal, you'll find fantastic growth, or at least I have, and all of those that I've seen practice it do, find that they can have extraordinary growth in a year. A SMART goal is another acronym, S-M-A-R-T, and it stands for a specific measurable action that's realistic and time-bound. And it's a goal for myself. I choose SMART goals, and if I'm having a bad day, I can choose a SMART goal as simply as, I'm going to throw away this piece of paper. I think we're ready for a joke. You know what this is?
It's a result.
An origami boulder. Thank you. Doesn't get any better than this. That's like my favorite joke. So. They say that a comic says things funny. No, a comic says funny things, and a comedian says things funny. I'm neither. But the SMART goal elements, those kinds of structures, also really appeal to me, and the efficiencies and thank you. Yeah. So in a moment, we're going to go through the basic framework of the 1 hour mastermind. And before I do that, I want to see if there are questions before I get going. I think Tebby had a question over here.
I forgot what it was.
Okay, about SMART goals or something?
No, I think you answered it in the next paragraph. So.
Got it.
It was probably the specifics of that.
We can work on SMART goals later. Sometimes that becomes the trickiest things for people that are new in masterminding. For some, it's the SMART goals. There's an accountability part of this. For some, when asking a yes or no thing, did you accomplish your SMART goal? Some people, as opposed to simply being able to say no and not giving a story, if they say no, they have a need for a narrative as to why it didn't happen. Yeah. That's actually not the job within the mastermind to be like judgmental or critical. And I often, if there's somebody that I'm masterminding with weekly and they're hitting their SMART goal every single week, sometimes I suggest to them, do you want to play bigger? You know, like if you're hitting your SMART goal every single week, maybe you want to stretch a little bit more. So there's no judgment when asking yes or no, did you accomplish your SMART goal? It's simply to have a place to be able to have some accountability, but there's no judgment there. It's just a data point. So right now, if I'm going to call upon Ty and put him on the spot a little bit, but he's accustomed to that. And since there are no questions, we're going to just jump into that framework of what masterminding looks like. We happen to use a free service called Free Conference Call HD, which you can find at Free Conference Call HD. There's plenty of them out there, but it's 100% free, and you can have up to, I believe, 200 people on the line. So us being able to have 8 people and there's other services like that. So we call into the same telephone number, and then when the mastermind starts, it begins with the facilitator reading the C from CREST, the Carnegie Open. And I guess actually, Ryan, before I ask you to read it, I didn't give the background on masterminding. Masterminding started to become popular in the 30s, although within the 30s, it tended to only be popular, to the best of my knowledge, among folks that were playing with an idea called New Thought. And New Thought was the notion of self-development and a little bit of like mind over matter and how one could focus on the mind and get self-development and along those lines. It was something that Andrew Carnegie was involved with, but kept it separate from his public profile, because it was hazardous for his status within wealth to be too associated with New Thought, which was kind of out there and edgy. Or at least this is my take on what I've found from the history of it. Masterminding was referenced in a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm not sure if folks here have heard of that book. If you have, yeah. Oh yeah, the hands are up. So in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, they talk about masterminding, and specifically Napoleon Hill interviewing Andrew Carnegie. And yet in the book Think and Grow Rich, they don't have the exact methodology. And so when I began interviewing those self-made millionaires that were masterminding, I was more than halfway through before someone said to me, "Hey, Ben, would you be interested in the actual script that Andrew Carnegie read in his own in-home mastermind?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was funny. I got that, and then within the next 2 weeks, 2 more people offered it to me. And I hadn't realized that it was commonly available. So the mastermind that we do uses the words that Andrew Carnegie would use to open his own in-home mastermind. Now, I know a lot of people think of Andrew Carnegie as this robber baron and being the king of efficiencies and cold and not empathetic or whatever along those lines. But these words you're about to hear Ryan read are the words that appear to me as far more compassionate and far more spiritual than I imagined Andrew Carnegie might be. These are the words that Andrew Carnegie would use to open his own in-home mastermind.
I release. I release myself to the mastermind because I am strong when I have others to help me. I believe. I believe the combined intelligence of the mastermind creates a wisdom far beyond my own. I understand. I understand that I will more easily create positive results in my life when I am open to looking at myself, my problems, and opportunities from another's point of view. I decide to release my desire totally and trust to the mastermind, and I am open to accepting new possibilities. I forgive. I forgive myself for mistakes I've made. I also forgive others who have hurt me in the past, so I can move into the future with a clean slate. I ask the mastermind to hear what I really want, my goals, my dreams, and my desires, and I hear my mastermind partners supporting me in my fulfillment. I accept. I know, relax, and accept, believing that the working power of the mastermind will respond to my every need. I'm grateful knowing this is so.
Thank you. The next step is round of gratitude.